And so as the year of 2021 draws to a close, we have to look back at it and wonder how the hell anyone is surprised that a media apparatus that wouldn't shut the hell up about Trump's age would push a dementia patient who's even older than Trump into the White House, despite his glaring mental mishaps, and then wonder how on earth the idiot whose only noteworthy piece of legislation in his multi-decade Senate career, something in today's contentious social environment he'd rather avoid, would in any capacity prove to be an effective administrator. It's been a year of random outbursts, meme-worthy town hall moments, saying the quiet part out loud, drifting off missteps, quite literally in his case, and despite getting Joe into the White House, insert massive asterisks here, and literally screwing up every single thing he has touched, the man has a diversity hire VP that somehow, despite being seen less and doing less, still has a lower approval rating than him. Can we pause and reflect on that for a moment? How are you seen less and do less than someone who makes everything worse, and you're somehow more disliked than that guy? I don't know how the hell that even makes any sense. I know there was a recent poll that said she is now more popular. It's only one poll, but I remain skeptical, considering there's no love lost between Dumb and Dumber, and there's some sketchy activity between their two camps in the press. She's clearly evil, but she comes across as someone who will be more evil as a side effect of stupidity rather than calculated malice. But anyway, when it comes to the US government right now, funny enough, the heroic Joe is not the Biden man, but West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, who is, as far as we can tell, the only sane man with any semblance of sense on the Democratic side, seeing as the US currently has a split Senate, which makes Manchin the sole man who can make or break any piece of legislation, as the Republicans have hunkered down and are united in opposing anything pushed by the world's oldest lapper of US presidency. So Manchin went on Fox News of all places, and you can just hear the screeching autist, can't you? A Democrat on Fox News, all hell has indeed frozen over. Probably climate change's fault, but anyway. Manchin gave a no which has shaken the White House to its very core. His reasons for the no is rather simple to anyone who has an ounce of common sense, which, again, in the current climate realm is very much no one on the Democratic side. Funny, I heard Senator Kennedy talk to a nominee and said, "In a democracy, the majority can suppress the minority. And sometimes all the fools are on one side." That phrase describes the current political climate to a disturbingly prophetic degree. Manchin's reasons are the colossal spending during the worst inflation in about 40 years, as well as the climate change provisions in the bill. Now again, we've heard idiots say Manchin is bought off by the coal industry, and this is somehow immoral in the eyes of a bunch of Democratic politicians. The day we take lessons of morality from politicians is the day our societies are all going to hell, by the way, but from the point of view of the coal industry, I'm going to take a bit more of a pragmatic approach. The Build Back Bolshevism agenda, a joke I shamelessly stole from a Spectator article because it's really good, is fueled by idiots like John Kerry, who impressively has a more punchable face and can out-boring even Al Gore. And when a multimillionaire sees fit to tell the world how they should consume and produce energy to save the planet while he flies around in a private jet, I think it's safe to say anything that mongoloid tells the world to do, the exact opposite should be our immediate go-to move, and that our side is vehemently against coal. Now, Joe Manchin's state of West Virginia's energy sector is overwhelmingly dominated by coal, I think over 90% the last time I checked. Now, what sane politician is going to demolish the energy sector that runs the state's damn power grid? Not only is this a politically stupid position, but from an economic and infrastructure perspective, this is straight up suicide. Contrary to the view of idiotic Democrats, the sector is not run by corporate fat cats that look like my avatar. Regular people of the state work these positions and provide the state with power, employment, and taxes. But the rest of the Democrats want Manchin to vote on a bill that will destroy the jobs, increase taxes, decrease the state's revenue, make power more expensive, get power from outside the country that will likely increase the pollution when you factor in the transportation costs of said power, during sky-high inflation, alarmingly expensive fuel costs, and all to make the worst president in history of the United States look better despite everything he's advocated for blowing up in his face. You're almost praying for corruption because the sheer level of stupidity of these politicians is astronomically overwhelming. It doesn't seem to register to these mindless Democrats that a corporate industry and regular citizens can actually have mutually aligning interests. And I find this rather unusual, coming from the guy who claimed he was going to restore order and class to the White House, as if this old demented bellend with no policy ideas whatsoever was somehow going to unite the country pushing for the most radical policy since FDR and LBJ. And despite these ludicrous claims, which was never going to come to fruition, because they are not popular with the American people, which is why certain state representatives are opposed to it, and also because Biden is politically toxic. And in the wake of saying no, the entire force of his political wing has set out to attack Manchin. The man can't even unite his own party, let alone the government apparatus. What a genius. Furthermore, common sense has taken yet another hammer to the noggin when you have decayed porridge for brains Bernie Sanders coming out and saying, Manchin doesn't have the guts to stand up to special interest groups. Your entire party has been sucking off Big Pharma for 2 damn solid years. Spare me your disingenuous complaints, you pathetic old Soviet simping shill. Any Democrat who talks about income inequality or prescription drug prices who hasn't said a damn word about certain states' vaccine overreach is an evil soulless creature with no shame. Democratic states have been the most draconian in the restrictions, which has resulted in worse outcomes not only in terms of the coof, but also everything they claim to care about has gotten worse where their most progressive state overreaching policies have been implemented. Have you seen the crime rate in Democratic cities lately? Not to mention California has seen an exodus for the first time in the state's history. And when it comes to the coof, it's been their most hilarious attempt to juggle hiltless political knives that are completely disconnected to reality and will cut you regardless of where you grab it. On the one hand, politicians like the coup because emergency powers makes it easier to push draconian ideological bollocks, and wresting power away from a politician is like trying to get the coke out of Tony Montana's office. Well, that and it makes a terribly convenient scapegoat for when they suck at absolutely everything. That doesn't last forever though, especially when they make the policies that result in the screw-ups. On the other hand, seeing as they were elected on the promise of doing something about it, and despite touting their vaccine numbers, there is now more death under this administration than the previous one. So they look impotent and unable to fulfill a basic campaign promise after bashing Trump, so ha. The hopeless trust is even further eroded by Stuart Biden coming out and saying, everyone talks about freedom, to not have a shot, to not have a test. Well, guess what? How about patriotism? How about making sure you're vaccinated so you do not spread the disease to anybody else? What about that? What's the big deal? Well, first off, the patriotic reply would be, leave me the hell alone and government sucks asshole. Secondly, you senile old dementia monkey, you know nothing about any of this evidently, seeing as that is not a function of the damn vaccine, which then begs multiple questions, the first of which is, what's the bloody point? If the vast majority have been vaccinated and the ones who are not are the ones who are in no danger or likely are immune thanks to already having had the virus, why the hell are these big pharma simps masquerading as politicians so hell-bent on turning every citizen into a customer? I'm going to say something horribly blasphemous if this isn't glaringly obvious to the population already. The coof jab doesn't work. And I'm at this point more convinced than not that it was never designed to work that way either, because unlike Ron Seal is not exactly what it says on the tin. What this whole gimmick has actually been all about is turning every human into a pay-as-you-go phone, and those boosters is your credit top-up. That's all it is, a subscription service model. By the way, in the wave of this very scary new variant, if people can't tell there was sarcasm, has anyone else noticed you don't hear so much about the hospitals anymore, or even the deaths. Now it's just the infection rate. You know why? Because it's supposedly more transmissible, and virtually no one is dying or being admitted to the hospital. Whatever variable of the virus invokes the most fear, that is what the corporate press will use. That's just how the game is played. The propaganda is unbelievably easy to spot. Why do you think there was such a massive push for the states to get more testing kits? It's so they can prop up the infection numbers. Plain and simple. Speaking of the testing kits, does it strike anyone else as mildly amusing that the people who are so eager for the testing kits are also, vaccinated? Doesn't speak too well for the efficacy of the coup shot now, does it? But getting back to old Joe, when he says this kind of crap, he's got those cue cards he always reads off. At this point, I'm very curious about those because his brain is so fried and he's clearly suffering from short-term memory loss. I'm wondering if those cards are not only a script, but also a memory aid to remind him of what the hell he's even doing. Because I don't think he knows what the coup even is, or that he's supposedly the guy running the show. He's routinely said things like, what am I doing? I'm not going to read it. What am I signing? Or simply drifting off mid-sentence as if his mind just switched off suddenly. We're only a year in, after the cavalcade of nothing but screw-ups, Manchin shooting the Build Back Bolshevism bill into the grave, and Biden's poll numbers are continuing to crater as he's done nothing to alleviate his own self-inflicted wounds. We're looking at a Democratic Party falling to pieces, infighting over ideological disagreements, and several Dems are just saying, nah, to hell with this. They're either resigning or saying they're not running for re-election. As a matter of fact, in the last week, 3 top Dems have said, we're out. And that was over a 24-hour period. If there's a whole year still left, and they're signaling now they're ready to jump ship, what does that tell you about Joe's agenda and the party's health overall? That red wave is gathering more and more steam, and we're still a whole year away from the midterms. There's plenty of time for that wave to turn into a full-blown tsunami. And that's all for today. Until next time.